Welcome to the Power Within, a place where ordinary ends and transformation begins. If you've ever felt stuck, lost, or like you're living a life that's smaller than your potential, you're not alone, and you're exactly where you need to be. Today's not just about motivation, it's about breaking free from the version of you that's been holding you back for too long. So before we go deep into the raw mindset of David Goggins and the courage it takes to reinvent your life, take a moment to share this with someone who's ready to rise, comment below with what you're leaving behind, and most importantly, subscribe to the Power Within. Because the power you've been searching for has always been in you. Now, let's wake it up. We often grow up in India surrounded by expectations. From family, society, and sometimes even from ourselves. We're taught to be obedient, to play it safe, to follow the proven path. But somewhere along the way, we begin to wear these expectations like armor, not realizing they're also shackles. The version of you that wakes up each day, the one who delays dreams, avoids discomfort, and chooses silence over self-expression, is not who you were meant to become. That version is only a shadow, shaped by years of compromise, fear, and quiet resignation. David Goggins reminds us that the real battle is not with the outside world. It is not the economy, not your job, not your family. It is the quiet voice inside that says, "It's okay, you can stay the same." That voice is familiar. It speaks in your mother tongue. It whispers to you while you're standing in traffic or scrolling your phone at midnight. But if you pause long enough to listen carefully, you'll realize it's not your truth. It's your past. To break free from your old self, you don't need a new city, a new job, or a motivational video. What you need is a moment of courage, a single decision to say, "Not today, not again." Today, I choose to rise, not run. I will no longer defend my limitations. I will challenge them. The old self was built for survival. The new one must be built for expansion. And until you confront that inner voice, until you reject its quiet excuses, you will continue to live a life smaller than your potential. You deserve more. Not from the world, but from yourself. Most of us grow up thinking pain is something to avoid. From childhood, we're comforted whenever we cry, told not to take risks, reminded to stay safe. In Indian homes, pain is seen as a problem to solve, not a teacher to learn from. But what if we've misunderstood pain all along? David Goggins challenges that idea with fierce honesty. For him, pain isn't punishment. It's the process. It's the fire that burns away weakness and reveals the raw truth of who you are beneath the surface. When life gets heavy, when you're rejected, when you're tired, when things fall apart, it's not because you failed. It's because you're being invited to grow. Most of us grow up thinking pain is something to avoid. From childhood, we're comforted whenever we cry, told not to take risks, reminded to stay safe. In Indian homes, pain is seen as a problem to solve, not a teacher to learn from. But what if we've misunderstood pain all along? David Goggins challenges that idea with fierce honesty. For him, pain isn't punishment. It's the process. It's the fire that burns away weakness and reveals the raw truth of who you are beneath the surface. When life gets heavy, when you're rejected, when you're tired, when things fall apart, it's not because you failed. It's because you're being invited to grow. But not everyone accepts that invitation. Most people run the other way. We numb ourselves with distraction, endless scrolling, comfort food, overthinking, alcohol, even spiritual bypassing. But growth demands attention. And pain, when you let it speak, reveals the very things you've been running from. Your fears, your regrets, your patterns. To grow, you must learn to sit with pain without asking it to leave. It could be emotional pain from a broken relationship, or the mental weight of failure, or the quiet ache of not becoming who you know you were meant to be. Whatever it is, don't escape it. Engage with it. Goggins teaches that suffering, when chosen, is sacred. That doesn't mean destroying your body or pushing beyond your limit mindlessly. It means choosing the harder path, the one with resistance, not comfort, because you know who you want to become. If you let pain shape you instead of shame you, it will give you something no comfort ever will. Pride. Not pride in achievement, but in endurance. And that kind of pride can't be taken away, only earned. In our culture, we often wait for the right feeling to act. We wait to feel inspired before going to the gym. We wait to feel confident before applying for the job. We wait for motivation like it's some divine guest, unpredictable, untouchable, and always late. But David Goggins says something radically different. If you're waiting for motivation, you've already lost. Motivation is a luxury. Discipline is survival. Discipline doesn't shout. It doesn't come with music playing in the background or goosebumps on your skin. It whispers quietly at 5 a.m. when the alarm rings and no one is watching. It shows up in silence, when you choose to study instead of scrolling, when you go for a run even though your knees hurt, when you say no to the easier option without applause. What stops most people isn't a lack of talent. It's the idea that we need to feel like it in order to begin. But in reality, your feelings are unreliable. They shift with the weather, with hormones, with mood swings. Discipline is what holds you steady when everything else in your mind is pulling you down. In India, life is loud, families are close, opinions are everywhere, which is why self-discipline, true inner control, is even more powerful. It's your private rebellion. It's how you say to the world, I may not control everything, but I will control how I show up. So no, you don't need to feel ready. You don't need anyone's permission. You need one thing: to act anyway, especially when you don't feel like it. Because every time you do, you build a quiet kind of self-respect, the kind no one can give you and no one can take away. There's a moment that comes before every regret, before every missed opportunity, before every habit you wish you didn't have. It's almost invisible. A flash, a breath, a single second. David Goggins, the 1 second decision. And once you learn to master it, you no longer live at the mercy of your moods. It's that moment when you're lying in bed and the alarm goes off and you have to choose, get up or hit snooze. It's the second before you say yes to another distraction, knowing it will cost you your focus. It's when you're standing at the edge of discomfort and everything in your mind is begging you to step away. We don't lose our lives in big dramatic moments. We lose them slowly, quietly, 1 second at a time. In Indian culture, we often talk about karma, about how our future is shaped by our choices. But we forget that the most important karma is decided in the present, in these microscopic decisions. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to win this second. Not the next hour, not the next year, just this one. The power is not in always choosing right. It's in pausing long enough to realize you have a choice. That second, that breath, is your opening. And if you can learn to stay present when your mind is panicking, you'll find freedom. So the next time life pushes you to the edge, don't collapse into your old story. Don't hand over your strength to fear. Stop, breathe, choose. Because in that 1 second, you're not just making a decision, you're building the person you'll become. There's a silence many of us carry, a chapter of our life we never speak of. Maybe it's failure, maybe it's heartbreak, maybe it's something that happened in our home, behind closed doors, when we were too young to understand it, but old enough to be wounded by it. In India, where reputation is often guarded more tightly than truth, we're taught to bury pain, not confront it. We keep things inside out of shame, out of fear, or simply because what will people say becomes louder than our own voice. But David Goggins invites us to do the opposite. He tells us to step into the darkest rooms of our past and turn on the light, not to blame, not to gain sympathy, but to take our story back. When you own your story, no one can use it to hurt you. When you speak the truth, even if your voice shakes, you rob shame of its power. You stop running. And for the first time, you face the mirror, not as a victim, but as someone who survived. This doesn't mean broadcasting your pain to the world. It means not hiding it from yourself. It means looking at the things you've been through, or the mistakes you've made, and saying, yes, that happened, and I'm still here. Your story, however messy, is your proof of strength. Your scars are not weaknesses, they are evidence of healing. And when you share your truth, even just with yourself, you make space for others to breathe. You become someone who gives people permission to stop pretending. The journey to becoming your strongest self doesn't begin with a plan. It begins with honesty. Because once you own your truth, you don't have to run from your past. You can rise from it. We live in a country where duty often comes before dreams. From a young age, many of us are taught to live for something or someone else. For parents, for marriage, for stability. And in the process, we slowly forget what we were made for. We become caretakers of everyone's expectations but our own. But David Goggins reminds us, before there was a job, before a relationship, before society gave you a label, there was you. And you are the mission. Not your salary, not your degree, not your achievements, you. This isn't selfishness, it's self-respect. Because when you forget yourself, everything else you build eventually begins to crack. You cannot pour into others from an empty cup. And the most dangerous kind of failure is the one that looks like success, on paper, but not in your heart. Your mission is not to be admired, it's to become someone you admire. That means building strength in silence. That means saying no to what drains you, even if it's familiar. That means working on your body, your mind, your peace. Not because it's fashionable, but because it's sacred. Your growth doesn't need applause. It needs consistency. And your purpose doesn't always need a reason. Sometimes it's enough to say, because I matter, because I want to see what I'm capable of. You may have a long to-do list, but don't forget, the most important task each day is to take one step closer to who you are meant to be. There is no final destination, no title that will complete you, because you were never chasing success, you are always chasing yourself. There will be days when you feel behind, when you look around and it seems like everyone else has figured life out. Stable jobs, happy relationships, weekend trips, glowing updates. And then there's you, still trying to wake up on time. Still stuck in the same old cycle, still unsure if you're ever going to become who you thought you could be. But let me tell you something, Goggins would say. You're not broken, you're becoming. Becoming is messy. It's not linear. It doesn't always look beautiful from the outside. Sometimes becoming looks like crying quietly on your rooftop because you feel like a failure. Sometimes it's standing in a crowded room and still feeling completely unseen. Sometimes it's just getting out of bed and brushing your teeth when your mind is screaming that none of it matters. But in those small, invisible moments, you are building strength. Not the kind that makes headlines, the kind that helps you hold your own hand when no one else will. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. What you need is to keep going, even if it's just one more honest breath, one more step into the unknown. Healing is not a straight road. Progress is not always loud, and purpose is not always clear. But the fire inside you, that's real, that's yours, and it's enough to light the way forward. So no, you are not a failure. You are not behind. You are in the process of becoming something unshakable. And one day, you'll look back and realize the person you were searching for was who you were becoming all along. At the end of it all, one truth remains. You are not your past, your pain, or the voice that says you're not enough. You are the result of every moment you chose to rise. Quietly, painfully, powerfully. David Goggins didn't become who he is by chance. He built himself from rock bottom, one brutal truth, one disciplined step, one second decision at a time. And so can you. You don't need permission to change. You don't need approval to grow. All you need is the courage to stop running from your story and start rewriting it. The world may never understand your struggle, but you must. Because when you finally own your pain, it no longer controls you. It becomes your strength. This isn't just the end of a video. It could be the beginning of your comeback. The moment you stop waiting and start becoming. So if this message sparked something inside you, don't let it fade. Like this video to remind yourself you're ready. Share it with someone who needs to hear these words. Comment below, what are you breaking free from today? And most importantly, subscribe to The Power Within, because your journey isn't over. It's only just begun.